Today's episode of the JJ Redick Podcast is brought to you by SeatGeek, the best app for buying and selling tickets to sporting events, concerts, and more. For $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase on any game or sporting event or concert or Broadway show, use promo code JJ, download the SeatGeek app, or go right to SeatGeek.com. We're also brought to you by Belvedere. Produced in one of the world's longest-running distilleries, Belvedere Vodka is the world's finest all-natural vodka. Crafted by a collective of master distillers, Belvedere is made with non-GMO Polish rye, pure water, and no additives. Recognized for quality, Belvedere was named the ISC World Vodka Producer of the Year in 2015, 2016, and 2017. You know it's good stuff. Enjoy a delicious cocktail like a Moscow Mule with Belvedere Vodka today, and remember to always drink responsibly. Welcome to the JJ Redick Podcast on the Ringer Podcast Network, where I interview some of the biggest names in sports and culture, as well as give you an inside look at life in the NBA. Usually on this podcast, I'm the one asking the questions, but this week I decided to let you guys ask the questions for my first Mailbag episode. You guys sent in a lot of great questions to jjmailbagpod@gmail.com, and I'm excited to answer them, so let's dive right in. Welcome to this week's episode of the JJ Redick Podcast, a very special and different week. We're going to do a mailbag episode. So there was a tweet going out a few days ago to send in your questions to a random email address, and Tommy here has gathered those questions. Tommy, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, JJ. Thank you, everyone, for sending in the questions.
I'm looking over some of these questions. There's some phenomenal questions here. I think we should just jump right in and get to the questions. Why don't you read them, and I'll give you my best response.
Phil Shore is our first question tonight from Gainesville, Virginia. As someone who has been a captain, a veteran on a team full of youth, and someone that played for great coaches like Doc Rivers and Coach K, what, in your experience, JJ, are the best leadership traits and strategies?
It's a great question, Phil. So it's actually interesting. I think about this a lot in terms of leadership, and so often the media, fans, really our culture as a whole sort of identifies like bravado and talking a lot and sort of having this alpha personality as being a leader. And that, to me, in my experience, is sort of the opposite of what I've experienced. And really, the first trait I think of when I think of the best leaders I've ever been around is humility. Jameer Nelson is a great example of that. He's just a humble, nice person, and people follow him.
And is that a coincidence that he's been in the league for this long?
No, I think that's why that's why he still has a job.
Yeah.
And people respond to him. Coach K, I think his greatest strength has always been adaptability, whether that's how he coaches a team or whether that's how he utilizes the one and done era.
Yeah.
And he's sort of figured that out, where he was at first a little hesitant to sort of buy into this idea of just recruiting kids to come in for 1 year. And now he's got a one and done factory, basically. And then the third thing, I think, for specifically a coach in terms of what a great leadership strategy is empowerment. Ultimately, you want to empower your players. In a business, you want to empower your employees. The goal should be, as a leader, to not just like do everything and put everything on your plate, but to actually delegate and empower the people around you to do their job at a high level.
Spencer Roach from Austin, Texas, your former hometown.
Best city.
Steve Nash, on your pod a few years ago, mentioned it took him a few years after retirement to touch a basketball again. Are you going to be hitting the YMCA gym a la your friend Jamal Crawford once you retire? Or are you going to focus on staying active a different way?
I would say the latter there would be my strategy for retirement.
You're not popping in random gyms around New York and Philly?
I have no idea if I have two sons, and I have no idea if they're going to play basketball, but I would venture to say if they don't play basketball, I will probably never touch a basketball again. And I'm okay with that.
That's amazing.
I will watch basketball. Like, I look forward to retirement because, like, I'm going to go to every freaking Duke game. I'm going to, if we stay in Brooklyn, I'll go to NBA games when guys are in town that I want to see play. But I don't see myself shooting.
Just literally not even picking up a basketball.
No, I won't ever. I won't ever go into a gym.
This is newsworthy.
No, I think Nash, maybe it was Nash that I talked about this.
Yeah.
Privately, not on my pod. But, there's like a burden as a shooter for some reason. The burden to make shots.
Well, the amount of time you spend, the repetition and everything like that.
It's just, it's not that it's traumatic.
Yeah.
But it's something where, like, there's a...
Well, you also can't just roll into a gym and miss 4 threes. Like, that doesn't work for you mentally. Like, if you're not hitting at a high clip, you're going to be unhappy. It's going to turn into a mental issue rather than a physical issue.
As much as I love shooting, and that's the drug for me, is like seeing the ball go through the net. I've talked about it before. There's a little mini orgasm that happens in my brain every time that I see the ball go through the net.
Who did you say that to Henri?
Yeah, I think I said it on this.
Yeah, you said it. I think you said it to Thierry Henry.
Oh, Thierry Henry. Yeah,
Super. Just like, how do I respond to that?
In a room of like 15 people, no one knew how to respond. But like, I don't know that there's a point when I'm retired. Like, what is the point of me going to the gym? So here's my strategy. I'm gonna golf. I've retired from golf until I'm retired from basketball to protect myself. I'm gonna play tennis. My wife plays tennis.
Which will keep you in shape.
Yeah, which will keep me in shape. And then for cardio, I think I'm going to try swimming.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you swim now or no?
I'm not very good, but so I have a couple friends that like are former Olympic swimmers, and we're going to do some lessons.
We got next one. Patrick Use, no city given. What was the draft process like for you? Did you know for a while you were going to the Magic, or was it a surprise? Did you ever think you were going elsewhere?
If there's not a city next to the name, should I assume that these are fake questions?
I would not make that assumption. I would just think that these people smartly don't put where they're from in the email.
All right, Patrick. You know what? The draft process...
No one can make up this last name. E-U-S-E.
That's right.
This is real.
Patrick Smith would be... Okay, so the draft process for me was actually incredibly stressful because the combine was like about 2.5 weeks before the draft at the time. I went to the combine. My back had been bothering me. I ended up getting an MRI on the day of the testing because I was hurting so bad. They said I had a herniated disc in my back. So I begged Ned Cohen, who's now our assistant GM. He was working for the league at the time. Can I please leave? I need to go get an epidural at Duke. He let me leave a day early. And then that night I went back to my apartment in Durham, and there was like 2 random people staying at my place. And so I was like, fuck it, I'm going out.
Wait, 2 random, what kind of random people? Like, did you know they were staying?
I had a buddy who was living like in my apartment for the summer because I was in LA that summer.
Yeah.
And he like had invited his high school friend and his girlfriend. And so I get back to my apartment. They're like, it's a 1-bedroom. So like they're like staying there. So I'm like, all right, I'm going out.
So awkward.
And it was summer school at Duke, and I ended up getting a DUI. It was, one of the worst nights of my life. We can go into greater detail about that.
That's another podcast.
Yeah, that's another podcast. And then, so I had a back injury and a DUI 2 weeks before the draft. And so I had to cancel the rest of my workouts. I wasn't sure if I was going to, drop in the draft. I remember just sitting in jail with no shoes on and thinking to myself, like, I'm going overseas. Everything that I've worked for in the last 4 years, is just gone because of a bad decision. And then as we got closer to the draft, I knew that I wasn't going to go past Orlando. There was kind of a possibility of me going to Houston at 8. They ended up making a trade, Rudy Gay for Shane Battier. 9, Golden State, I had my worst workout. I didn't think I was going to go there. And then 10, Seattle, I had a fantastic workout. And I really thought they were going to draft me. And they ended up drafting a guy by the name of Mohamed Sayer Sene, who didn't make it past his second year.
Are you one of those people that remembers every detail of the people that were picked before you?
Yes.
I've found that a lot of NBA. I would say the vast majority of NBA guys are like that. No matter how much, at least you admit it. Many of them won't admit it, but they know everything. They know every.
When it got to like year 5 or 6, and like more than half of my draft class was out of the league, I felt like vindicated. And now it's like there's like only a few of us, like LaMarcus, Rondo, Kyle Lowry. I'm sure I'm missing somebody, but there's only a few of us.
Everyone who's stuck around has been an impact player. There's no one who's been.
Yeah.
Does it feel like it was? Does it feel like it was forever ago? Or does it still feel recent at all?
Oh my God, it feels like a lifetime ago. It's funny. My first 7 years in the league flew by. Even though early on I wasn't playing well, like that whole time period seems like a 2-year time period.
Yeah. But
then I had a kid. And so the last like 5 years felt like 2 decades.
That's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
Sterling Mack, I saw you play in 04-05 against Oklahoma at the Garden. What's the biggest adjustment you've made from college to the NBA, coming off screens and creating airspace? And was there anyone, he mentions Ray Allen or Rip Hamilton, that you patterned when sort of crafting your game?
I think there's 2 things that I've sort of adjusted to, and that's number one, in college when we would run floppy or any baseline screening action, like I didn't really care what side I came off of. I'd come off the left block and kind of go left, right footwork, right shoulder shot, and then, vice versa, right, left footwork, right shoulder shot. But when you get to the league, everybody that guards me is so much longer than me. And, if they're on my left side as I come off a screen on the left side, then it's really hard to block my shot.
Yeah.
So typically I like to come right. Like that's kind of, the whole league knows that. It's not like a secret.
It's not a secret.
Although last night in Detroit, I did hit 2 or 3 shots coming out the other side, which was nice. But generally speaking, like that's one adjustment. The second part is like the hand-to-hand combat part. And this is actually something that I learned from Rip Hamilton when I played against him early on in my career. And that he sort of would initiate contact on any floppy and screening action. And so he would sort of use your own body's momentum against you, and he would sort of grab you and hold you as the offensive player. And then it's not really a push off. It's more of just like getting you to go one direction as he pulls you, and then he pops out the other side.
It's like a bump. It's
yeah.
Like an inadvertent
the other
bump.
thing he would do, and which I do all the time, is like as the screen is coming towards you, you actually grab the defensive player. Not grab, but like you nudge the defensive player into the screen.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm getting held, the defensive player is getting held. I always like say to the refs, like it's hand-to-hand combat.
Everyone's doing it.
Yeah, everybody's doing it. So that's one thing I took from Rip. But like Rip, Ray, Reggie, those were the 3 guys that I watched a ton of film on in college that I tried to model my game after.
This is not one of the questions, but when you play a young shooter now, like a young, like last night,
Luke Kennard.
Luke Kennard from Duke, who everyone, of course, compares you to because you guys are 2 white guys from Duke. But like when you play a young shooter, are you sort of hesitant at all to give up any of your tricks when you're playing? Because like it's like
funny. I've had a few guys every year will say something like, "Hey man, can I get together with you in the off season?" Like Donovan Mitchell even said that at the beginning of the year. He doesn't need my help. But no, he said that about shooting. He wanted to know kind of my shooting routine and stuff and wanted to work out with me in the summer. Luke has always sort of said that. And like Stan, even last night when I talked to him after the game, was like, I really want you to work with Luke in the offseason. We were coming out of the timeout last night and Langston Galloway was like, yo, I need to talk to you. I need to steal some of your shit. So like, this is like, this happens.
This could be a side hustle for you.
Yeah.
This will be
actually last year when KG was like our consultant, we had this amazing conversation in the weight room in Charlotte. One thing he told me during the conversation was that what he learned from Beyonce was that he liked to work out and sing at the same time because that's what Beyonce does. So that's how she gets in shape.
That's
amazing. That she sings and works out at the same time. But the other thing he told me is that he's like, basically I could have my own business just teaching sort of, transitional players, like college to NBA guys that are like me, the tricks of the trade. Like have like little mini camps during the off season, consulting work during the season where I work with these guys. It's an interesting thought.
This is going to be the problem with your theory of not picking up a basketball when you're done, is you're going to have me facing these 7-figure checks to go teach shooting for 20 minutes, and it's
I mean, if it's 7 figures, I'll go pick up a
it's
ball.
all coming out the window. All right. Miles from Chicago. You're going to like this one. Yeah. Miles from Chicago. JJ, what's your favorite restaurant to eat in on the road? And what's the worst dining experience you've had?
Oh, man. I hate throwing restaurants under the bus.
Well, so for the negative one, you don't have to say the name of the restaurant. You can just say this, like the city in the context.
Okay. So it's in the New York area. It is a highly rated restaurant. I believe it's somewhere on that. If you listen to the Grant Achatz podcast, we talked about the San Pellegrino Restaurant Magazine top 50 list. And
so it's expensive.
This is an expensive meal, and it was an expensive meal of foraged weeds. And like, I have no problem eating foraged items, but at one point they brought me a dish, and they said, it was my wife and I were celebrating her birthday, and they said, here's our next dish. This is our next course. It's weeds foraged from our garden, and on the side is a pesto made out of the same weeds. So they gave me weeds with a weed pesto. And then when we got to, and I get the sustainability thing, and this restaurant takes sustainability to like uber context, but like, we got to like one of the meat courses, and it was these like carnitas, play on carnitas style tacos, and the taco the tortilla itself was inedible, and also they said to me, we ran out of pig, so unfortunately you got stuck with the eye socket. Oh no! I mean, I would have, like, the shoulder would have been awesome. I realized that wasn't a possibility.
That's just not acceptable at a restaurant like that. You can't run out of it. This is your whole job.
Anyways, it was one of those like 3-hour meals, and sometimes you really just want to go down to like Sweetgreen and get like a harvest bowl.
That's the thing with some of these crazy $500 a person restaurants. Yeah. No matter how good they are, you still want to go get a piece of pizza afterwards. And so then it becomes like...
Yeah. So one of the things, I didn't really talk with Grant about this on the podcast, but, in my experience with eating at all these restaurants is, some of it is like performance art, like Alinea, great food, but there's an element of like art, like literal performance art to the meal and to the experience. And then you get these hyper sustainable restaurants, these restaurants that really emphasize foraging, like Noma in Copenhagen. And so there's all these sort of copycats of that. But at the end of the day, you really just want to eat like a comforting meal. And so my answer to my favorite restaurant to eat in the road would be like a Thai. And they're both like old school, family run Italian places. One is El Gabbiano in Miami. I know Pop is a big fan of there. There's run by 3 brothers. One of them is always at the pasta cooking station every night, and the other is Giorgio Baldi in the Palisades. Those are the 2 restaurants. When I go on the road to those cities, those are the 2 places I go. I get the same thing every time at both places.
That's amazing.
Creature of habit. All right, we're going to take a quick break from your emails for a word from today's sponsor. Guys, it's time to freshen up with high-quality products from Dollar Shave Club. DollarShaveClub.com delivers everything you need to look, feel, and smell your best. Dollar Shave Club has razors, shave butter, shampoo, body wash, toothpaste, everything you need to look, smell, and feel your best. I get an amazing high-quality shave from my Dollar Shave Club Executive Razor. It's the best razor I've ever used. Their Dr. Carver's shave butter is fantastic. It goes on clear, so you can see where you're shaving. And since Dollar Shave Club delivers everything to you, you don't have to set foot in a store. As everybody knows, like, I generally have a beard, but like 3 or 4 times a year, I like to just chop everything off and just get a clean shave. Generally speaking, one of those moments is always after we lose our last game of the season. It's pretty much a guarantee that I will shave either that night or the next morning. And I only use Dollar Shave Club products. In fact, their shave butter is the best I've ever used. Hopefully this year, that nice 5 o'clock shadow / beard will be going all the way until June. Clean up your bathroom and your morning routine. Join Dollar Shave Club today, and for just $5 with free shipping, you get the 6-blade executive razor plus trial sizes of shave butter, body cleanser, and the butt wipe, one wipe Charlie's. Then keep the blades coming for a few bucks more a month. Get yours at dollarshaveclub.com/Redick. That's dollarshaveclub.com/Redick, Redick. And now back to the mailbag.
Fonz Yap. Nice name. Okay. What's the biggest difference between playing with a team full of veterans like CP and Jamal Crawford and a young team where you are the oldest player? Are there times where you feel like there's a generational gap between you and guys like Ben and Markelle Fultz and Embiid?
I think the biggest difference is the conversation, the conversation topic that happens on the bus or plane or in the locker room. Like with guys like CP, DJ, and Blake and Jamal, like the topics would generally be about like our kids, our wives, like post-career stuff, and whatever the opposite of kids and wives are, that's what the conversation is generally about right now. So I mean, like, look, I was a certain way when I was like 20, 21, 22. So with experience comes maturity.
Peter Howarth from Massachusetts. Hey, JJ, huge fan of the podcast. What is the most valuable type of player in the league right now?
Well, I don't. It's hard to say like the most. I would say there's three types of players really that have a lot of value. Number one would be a superstar. Obviously, those guys always are going to have the most value. Those are the supermax guys, the guys that are going to be getting huge extensions and all NBA, All Star, MVP conversation. Those type of guys. Beyond that, there's really two types of role players. I think, I'm going to put the 3-and-D guys, so the guys that sort of can shoot threes and guard their position on the wing, and anyone who really can shoot the basketball in sort of the same category. And then the second sort of role player that is really valuable, I think, is not necessarily a shooter, but someone who can guard multiple positions. So they're not in that 3-and-D category where they're like shooting 40% from the 3-point line, but a guy like Andre Roberson actually has a ton of value in this league because he can guard multiple positions. It's honestly what makes Draymond so great is that he can guard so many positions. Yeah, exactly.
And LeBron's like the ultimate example of that, is he can guard anybody.
So before I got to the league, there was like an influx of these guys that like could guard multiple positions. Yeah. Like Quintel Woods, for example. Yeah. Like he would probably have a place in today's NBA, but back then the league was different. So if you couldn't like ISO, there was this 5-year stretch where it was like if you couldn't ISO, Mike Dunleavy talks about this all the time with me. If you couldn't ISO, like you couldn't really play.
Yeah.
And that was the league. And now it's different. And the game has changed significantly. So if you can find yourself offensively a little bit and guard multiple positions, you have a strong value in this league.
Marco from San Jose. What opposing player has been most fun for you to watch this year? And second part, who do you fear the most going up against?
Well, Marco, I don't fear anyone. I think inherently I look at every NBA player as talented, as dangerous. I respect every opponent, whether I'm playing against James Harden or a guy who's on a 10-day up from the D League. Like I really believe everybody in our league can play, but I don't fear anyone. I got to say, what Donovan Mitchell has done this year is remarkable.
It's pretty crazy.
It is crazy. And I was thinking about this the other day. The series of events that had to have happened for him to be in this position. First of all, a bunch of teams had to pass him up.
Yeah, including the Knicks. Who his dad played for. Just saying, for New York fans.
I love my guys in Detroit. And I love Luke Kennard. He's my Duke guy. But they were the pick right before Donovan Mitchell. I believe Denver had to make the trade, right?
Yeah.
For Utah to get
Denver
that
made the
pick.
trade.
So Denver had to make the trade. They had to trade down.
So
a bunch of teams had to pass him up. And then Gordon Hayward had to leave. Yeah. And so there's all these possessions that need to be used. George Hill had to leave too, so they bring in Rubio.
It's also interesting because the Louisville, he did not come into the league with a ton of hype. This was not a thing that the casual fan was expecting at all. Franco in Tampa Bay. You talked about your basketball superpowers in the pod with Kyrie. What do you wish your non-basketball superpower was, if any? It's an interesting one.
It is. That's actually, I don't know that this is a superpower, but like the ability to code and write my own financial algorithms.
This is not a superpower. This is something you could take a class to learn how to do.
No. I mean like high level,
like next level,
like Flash Boys style algorithms, like that sort of thing. Just to beat the markets, it's just
to do it one day. Yeah. You don't need to do it for the whole year.
I would donate 10% at least to charity. Financial or superpower. Man, no one likes to fly commercial, so probably flying.
Benjamin in Seattle. If you had your American passport taken away and you were told you had to move to one foreign city for the rest of your life, where would it be and why?
This is a great question.
Great question.
It's something that I think about often. I don't want to get
not out of the realm of possibility.
I don't want to get political right now, but this is something that I think about all the time because of gun control. Yeah. I really do think about this all the time. So, the obvious answer would probably be like somewhere in Australia because it's English speaking and they have gun control. But
great food.
It's so hot there and it's just so far away from everything.
Yeah.
Then I would like sort of lean towards Italy and Florence specifically. So somewhere in Tuscany. I love wine and I could hop down to Positano when I needed to. But Italy is a very corrupt country. So I would venture to say it wouldn't be there.
What about Japan?
That's actually Tokyo would be.
Tokyo would be a super interesting one because you would either I know you've been.
Yeah, it's funny because when I the first day I got there I went last summer with Spencer Hawes and my brother-in-law. We took a little guys trip over there. We were there like 5 nights, and the first night we got back to our hotel fairly late, and I started looking up flights to Hong Kong, Shanghai, and there was one other city. I can't remember, maybe Singapore, because I was like, oh no, I don't like it here. I don't like it here. I'm leaving. We had a bad dinner experience. It was a Monday night, and like no one was. It was like surreal how quiet the streets were. So I was like, I'm leaving, and thank God they talked me off the ledge. But I ended up having an amazing time, and I love the culture. I love the country. I want to go back. I would go back this summer if it.
Well, it's so different. Cards. It's so.
Yeah. I remember landing at JFK.
Yeah.
Getting back to Brooklyn, and within like 24 hours, being like, I wish I was back in Japan.
And it's amazing because you we're in New York City right now, and you think this is like when you're in the U.S. It's the biggest city in the country. This is the home. Yeah. And you go to Tokyo, and there's no comparison.
There's no comparison
in terms of the lights, in terms of the energy, in terms of the action. It just is. It feels like you're in like Blade Runner.
Yes.
Like it feels like you're in like a different.
Blade Runner was how I described Hong Kong. You go to the Ritz in Hong Kong, and it's like looking out past over the bay at the rest of like downtown Hong Kong, and it looks like Blade. It looks like Blade Runner.
It's super cool.
Yeah,
it's really
for sure.
cool.
I could be an expat in Tokyo. I'd say Tokyo.
Here's an Australia question from Drew Lazar in South Philly. I recently learned via social media that Ben Simmons delivered a talk about his native Australia at a team breakfast, and that this is a tradition among the Sixers players. I'd love to know what topics you, JJ, and other members of the team have selected for their presentations thus far. In what ways does this impact morale on the team and staff?
Yeah, so Brett started this like team breakfast is what he calls it, team breakfast. He started it a few years ago, and from what I can understand, from what I know, like Jahlil Okafor, his rookie year, did a presentation on why NCAA athletes should be paid. I believe there was one player, I'm not going to say who, did a presentation on why marijuana should be legal.
It's a good one.
And I agree with it.
Yeah.
But there's also, like this year was like TJ McConnell did a presentation on coffee. Amir Johnson did a presentation on tattoo culture. Justin Anderson did one on the history of hip hop. So they can be anywhere from like 20 minutes to 45 minutes. I did one. Mine was, are we living in a simulation?
Sounds about right.
So it was a whole presentation on simulation theory, but it was interesting.
What was the team reaction to this? Team of 22 and 23-year-olds?
It was interesting because I didn't know how they would react, and the questions that I got afterwards were like high level. So we have like basically the entire basketball ops in this like lounge. So it's like trainers and front office people, obviously coaches, players. And like we went around the room and it was high level. Like there was some existential stuff. Like if the simulation theory is true, does that mean that God does not exist? And can simulation theory and God coexist? I said yes. I had my own little twist of why we're living in a simulation, and I said it was because somehow Trump ended up president. So we're living in that 0.001 simulation right now, and somehow he's Teflon and nothing sort of sticks. Yeah.
Nothing sticks.
But it was interesting because Todd Wright, our strength coach, we for like a couple months were going back and forth about what I should do my presentation on, and he really wanted me to do a presentation on emotional intelligence and how that impacts group dynamics relative to the team, and he thought it would be a good.
That's also a good one. That's a tough one to present on.
Yeah, for sure. Because it is sort of an individual thing.
Yeah.
And then I told him I wanted to do a presentation on tacos because I think they're the perfect food. And somehow on the East Coast there's no breakfast taco culture, and it really bothers me.
Not at all.
So I was going to do, because it's a team breakfast.
It's the only thing you miss from LA is the tacos.
I was going to have Jay
tacos.
do like a whole like tasting menu of breakfast tacos.
This would have been
like
the best one.
Like Austin style, like West Coast style, and then somehow I ended up doing, are we living in a simulation?
Speaking of tacos and breakfast tacos, Eric from San Diego. JJ, always been super intrigued by the end of games that are not in doubt. Do coaches go over what they expect from you, whether you should dribble out, foul, etc.? Are players aware there are millions of dollars wagered on these games, and that last dribble out or meaningless three or foul down 5 with 10 seconds left is immense for some of us? Why, if one team dribbles out and absorbs a turnover, does the other team then get to host a 30-footer on the ultimate possession? What is the quid pro quo? Eric, great question.
That is a great question. So first of all, every year we are required to get anti-gambling training. So we're not allowed to get,
every year. So it's not just like when you go to the league.
No, it's every year. So we are not allowed to sort of tip in any way. Sometimes my brother asks me questions and I'm like, I can't give you that information. No, he doesn't gamble, but like even to family members, like we're not supposed to, give out information. Obviously we're not allowed to bet on games. However, I don't think players are aware of the line, but I know for a fact that coaching staffs talk about it and talk about it openly. Like there'll be times where like, let's say the line is like 9.5 and they'll be like hitting each other and they'll be like, it's 12. It's 12. How did these guys get it right? Oh my God, they just hit a 3. It's 9 now. Like it's amazing sort of what happens at the end of the games. I was involved in a game my sophomore year at Duke. It was the Final Four game. I think the line was 1.5. And we were down 4 with like 3 seconds to go. They hit a free throw to put them up 4, and Duhon hit banked in a half-court shot to cut the lead to 1 at the buzzer. And
that was huge.
It was like a $1 billion swing. It was one of the all-time swings.
It was an all-time bad beat.
However, I have no clue what the line is going to a game.
But the thing is, what makes basketball different than other sports is, from a fan's perspective, these switches happen so fast.
Yeah.
So like in football, or definitely like in baseball or something like that, if you're betting on the game, it's just so many things have to happen for this to flip. Like this is Chris Duhon hitting a 45-foot shot. But this is why people love it too, though, because they embrace the craziness.
I'm curious to see how this is going to work. I know the league is trying to sort of regulate this gambling and take a percentage of it, which is very interesting.
Yeah. Everything.
Bill's boy Bob on Twitter is like
he is.
He's pretty heated at the league for even suggesting that they could take 1%.
It's all changing pretty quickly.
In terms of the etiquette, so generally the etiquette is the team that is winning, if there's, let's say, 32 seconds on the clock and they're up by 12, generally speaking, you run out the clock and you take that team turnover. A lot of people don't realize that's a team turnover. It's not the guy holding the ball. It's the team turnover. So Rob Perez, shout out Rob Perez. The bubonic plague actually doesn't exist.
Shout out Rob Perez, whose studio we're in right now.
I know. And then the team that is losing can pretty much do whatever they want. Because at that point, generally speaking, you might have young guys in, and those guys just want to get a shot up. They just want to see if they're on,
they're not worried.
They just want to see if they're on fire.
They're not worried about the degenerates in Vegas. Courtney Thu with a good question. Big fan, JJ, he says. Courtney, he or she, possibly. We all know of your structured and precise pregame routine. Which of your teammates has had the most nonchalant approach to games and why?
Oof. This is a hard question to answer. And I'll tell you, it's not because I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but because I really am like so locked in. I'm in my own little world.
Oh, we know.
No, I'm in my own little world.
Everyone who reads the New York Times knows.
I have to tell reporters this that are in the locker room, so they can come in the locker room like usually 75 to 45 on the countdown clock, and I usually swing through the locker room to put my tights and my socks on at about like 65 on the clock. And if a reporter's not our beat writer, they don't know like that I'm not talking.
Yeah,
like I'm in my zone. And so it can kind of come across as like I'm aloof or like trying to be an asshole, but I'm so locked in.
Yeah.
So I don't even notice what my other teammates do. I talked to Ray, and I think Ray talks about this in his book, and I know in a Jackie McCollum piece from 2008, Ray Allen talked about this, but Paul Pierce did have a pretty like loose vibe before
he just
a
would
game.
Pop in. Yeah.
You'd look at him and it'd be like 27 on the countdown clock, and he'd be like eating a taco. And I'm like, where'd you get your taco from?
Well, you guys talked about this a little bit on the pod, but do you think this is a thing that shooters just have more like are there any shooters that you know of who've just been like some of the league's best shooters who are nonchalant or just
they're the most superstitious people in the world.
You can't have both things happen.
People in the world.
Yeah. Because that's what's so interesting is I feel like there's definitely, I mean, like look at a guy like Ron Artest, like that, yeah. Like he's doing God knows what before the game, and he goes out there and still plays well, but he's not a specialist.
So the only person that this is not meant to throw him under the bus because I love him to death and he's a current teammate, but like what Joel is able to do, given his pregame preparation, is startling. I mean, there was a game recently where I said to Dario before the game, like Joe was like it was one of those days, like he was just not really doing anything pregame. Yeah. He usually comes out with like 8 minutes to go on the clock, and sometimes not wearing shoes. And like so we're getting ready to go out for warm-ups, like let's say 18 minutes on the clock, and Joe was in the training room. I'm not even sure he'd put his uniform on yet. And I said to Dario, I was like, dude, I wish I could be like that. And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, I wish I didn't have to do all this stuff I have to do because Joe is so good. I said, he's gonna have 20 and 15 tonight. And he ended up with 21 and 18. Like, he's just that good.
Life isn't fair, man.
Yeah, whatever. It's all good. I love you, Joe.
You're not mad about it or anything. Brett in Tuscaloosa. What's the overall vibe on Trump in the NBA locker rooms these days?
We talked about Trump more when I was with the Clippers. We have spoken about some things that have happened since I've been in Philly, and that's mostly like Brett, again, bringing stuff up in team meetings. I think the NBA, by and large, as everyone knows, has become very politically active, specifically when it comes to social justice. And because some of the things Trump has said over the last 2 or 3 years flies in the face of social justice, there is a lot of animosity towards him in the league. Jarrett Jack, who I've known since we were like 14, he didn't like a call that the refs called against me in the Christmas Day game. And I think it was like he fouled me on a 3. And so he's like talking to the refs. I thought he was talking to me. I was shooting free throws. And he goes something like, just because he's white doesn't mean you can treat him like Trump. Or something along those lines. And I was like offended. I was like, Jarrett, you can't say that. Don't compare me to Trump.
You know me.
I think we got double T's, or maybe we got separated or something because I was so mad. People hate the guy. People hate the guy. And I would say too, I don't know that people respect the guy. Like LeBron has sunned him on multiple occasions.
Yes, yeah. Literally sunned him.
Literally
sunned him. That's it. There's no other word to describe it but that.
Yeah.
There's also the thing with championship teams going to the White House. I don't even think it's a consideration for these teams. Like I think now it's
no.
It's not a judgment call anymore.
You'd have to deal with more shit if you went to the White House.
So much
than
more
not
shit
going.
from everybody in your life.
Yeah.
There's no being in a photo with him is.
I'm curious to see what Villanova does.
Yeah, because it's trickier with colleges.
It is. It's very tricky, and players by and large haven't grasped that sort of self-expression and self-empowerment yet.
Yeah,
and so especially if the nature of the NCAA.
Especially if they're not graduating and they're coming back, it just becomes a little bit.
It's tricky.
Yeah,
and I'm wondering. So I'm wondering what they do because they're in that world. Like Villanova's in that world. They're in this NBA basketball. Predominantly African-American team. It's interesting what they're going to do.
Ben Pertel, I'm guessing from Philadelphia based on this question. Does the energy or mood of the team change at all after the success of other Philly teams, i.e. the Eagles winning the Super Bowl and or Nova winning the tourney?
I don't think the mood of the team changes. The mood of the city and the fans change.
The Philly fans are nuts.
We're still getting the Eagles chants at our home games. It's April. We're playing the Cavs tomorrow.
The draft is in 2 weeks.
Big Friday night game. There's going to be Eagles chants at the games. It's why I'm looking. That's why I think home court advantage in the first round would be so important for us because our home crowd could be a deciding factor. I really believe that. Even just playing last night in Detroit, where the arena's half full, it's a totally different feel than our home games right now. Our home games right now are raucous. They're amazing. We're playing in front of amazing fans. And so by and large, the fans in the city have sort of fed off that energy from winning the Super Bowl and winning a national championship. Hang tight. We'll be back for more emails after a break to hear from our sponsor. So, back to Mattress Firm. Let's keep the ball rolling, shall we? Everyone knows how important stretching is before an event, so does Mattress Firm. Your budget stretches further at Mattress Firm, so shop at America's neighborhood mattress store. They're the head coaches when it comes to mattress expertise, but know this, they are more than mattress experts. They have a game plan that helps you transform your mattress into a bed, from adjustable bases and sheets to headboards and bedroom decor. They have you literally and figuratively covered like your favorite guard or cornerback. Go to mattressfirm.com/podcast to see what deals are happening as I read this sentence to you. They even offer you a 120-night sleep trial to ensure perfection and a 120-night low price guarantee so you know you paid the perfect price. Score big with a perfect bed. Head to mattressfirm.com and use code PODCAST15. That's podcast15 for 15% off. The code is only valid through April 10th, so don't miss out. This is a fantastic deal. 15% off a mattress. Get the play-by-play on how you can monumentally improve your sleep today, tonight, and tomorrow, only at Mattress Firm. And now back to show.
We got a international question here. Felix Blom from Sweden. Hi, JJ. Longtime listener from Sweden checking in. Love the pod. So my question is, going into the playoffs, how will you, as the experienced playoff veteran, help guide the young and inexperienced core to success?
I think the key word there is help. I think I can be a help, but I can't do it. It's like Ben and Joe are our best players. There's no doubt about that, and they've got to be great. I can supplement them. Dario and I can supplement them. Rob, Marco, Ursan, TJ, all of us can supplement Ben and Joe. So we can help them. I've kind of talked about habits and routines a ton with the guys. And so one of the things I think in the playoffs is you have to lock in more and you have to really pay attention. The attention to detail is huge. By game 3, you should know every single play. I've said that to multiple guys.
Here we go. Dustin Kern. There's always a lot of talk that underclassmen, if an NBA prospect, should go to the draft. Did you have any pressure when you were at Duke to leave earlier? Do you ever regret not leaving earlier?
I had zero pressure. I felt zero pressure to leave early. there would have been an opportunity after my junior year to leave, and when I was doing the draft process the next year after my senior year, I met with Danny Ainge, and he's like, if you'd come out, I would have guaranteed you at 18, which is the pick. They ended up drafting Gerald Green at 18 that year. But had I known that, I might have left. So there was only
That's
one.
An interesting one.
There was only one factor for me, and that was winning a championship.
Yeah.
So like, had I won a championship prior to my junior year, I probably would have left. I also didn't have, like, I've talked about this before. So when I was growing up from the time of 7 on, the only thing I wanted to do was play at Duke. Like, there was no, I mean, NBA was like such a long shot in my mind. Like, it was all like, let's go to Duke. Let's go to Duke. So I played my freshman year at Duke, and then my sophomore year starts, and I'm like, okay, I'm at Duke. What now?
Yeah.
Like, there was this, my sophomore year was the hardest year of my life. Straight up, it was. And so, you know, it was like this thing, like, what's next? And had I gone into Duke, I think with a different mindset, like, I'm going to just try to kill and work and not be a frat kid for 2 years, I probably would have and could have left early.
Yeah.
In regards to sort of a general thing, like, I think kids, if there's an opportunity to go pro, I think they should go pro. I hate when people say they need to go back to college to develop more. No, they don't. First of all,
Well, look at someone like DeAndre Ayton. Like, how much more does he have to develop?
No, it's not. The player develop. Okay, in the NBA, there's an entire team of player development coaches
That's
that
their whole
work
job.
with you literally 24/7 every day. You don't have to go to class. Like, there's nothing, like, people become professional lawyers. People become professional doctors. There's nothing wrong with people becoming professional athletes.
Yes.
Like, this is what they're going to do. This is what they're going to do for 15 to 20 years. There's nothing wrong with that. Just leave.
Yeah.
Just leave.
Two more quick Duke questions from Shocker Salmon in Hollywood. You took a lot of heat as a Duke player back in the day.
Ringer staffer.
Does that hate still follow you to NBA arenas? I think he went to Duke. Does that hate still follow you to NBA arenas all these years later? Or is it specific to when you're playing around Maryland?
For a large portion of my career, every time that I would play in Charlotte or Washington, D.C.
And you always have good games in Charlotte.
I would get booed. Sometimes every time I touched the ball. Now, not so much. I don't know the reason why, because I know that Maryland fans probably still hate Duke and Carolina fans still hate Duke. But
Alex Rosenthal is an interesting one. How difficult do you think it'll be for Ben and Markelle to improve their jumpers? Is it a question of practice time, intensity? Why do some guys, like Jay Kidd, for example, develop them and others don't?
I would say specifically with Ben and Markelle, there's a functional issue in terms of shooting form. Markelle obviously had a shoulder injury. I think Ben's form left-handed is worse than his form right-handed. But I've seen Ben's improvement, and Ben has worked extremely hard with Lloyd Pierce, one of our assistant coaches, after pretty much every practice and every shoot around. Like, he's worked on a shot, and he's gotten better.
Yeah,
like
his free throw numbers have gotten a lot better.
And he's not shooting set threes, but like, he does them in shoot around sometimes, and I'm like, they look good, and they go in. So there's a potential there, I think, for both those guys to become good shooters. Do they need a jump shot? I think eventually, if they're going to play heavy minutes together, one of them will need to be able to space the floor. That's just the modern NBA. But right now, I don't think so. I mean, I think they're fine, and I think both of them, because of, like, both those guys want to be great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's not like neither of those guys like, I'm in the league now, and I'm like Ben has aspirations. Markelle has aspirations.
You can see it.
So they're going to be great.
We haven't seen much of Markelle, obviously, but you can see it with Ben when you watch him. So Kevin O'Connor from,
I know that guy.
The Ringer, he sent in a question. He said in 2016, you for 2 years tried convincing DeAndre Jordan to switch shooting hands. Would you ever suggest the same thing to Ben?
I've already suggested it to Ben.
And how did it go over?
Ben is incredible because he's like literally the most receptive young player that I've ever been around. Not just with me, like with any of the coaches, with Brett. He's just really receptive. Like, he seemed open to the idea. I don't want to mess with him. Like,
Yeah.
I also think that since I said that to him, which was like October, November, was the first time I saw him shoot right-handed, he's gotten better left-handed. So I don't know that it's necessary with him. The other thing with Ben, too, is like, you need shooting around Ben. But I don't think Ben ever needs to have a jump shot to be an effective player. In nut-cutting time, as Brett calls it, in nut-cutting time in a Game 7, would it help for him to be able to knock down threes? Yeah, absolutely. But, like, the guy's going to average a triple-double or close to a triple-double for his whole career simply because he's 6'10" and can get wherever he wants to go and throw the ball wherever he wants to go.
Yeah. And it's also, you want him doing the things he feels confident doing. So if he feels it can get to the hole on any possession, then do that.
Yeah, right.
Thank you, everybody, for sending in questions. You guys are, before we leave, the Sixers are really rolling right now.
We are.
Are you?
It's a little surreal.
Yeah.
12 wins in a row.
What's your record? You're 19-5 since you traded for Marco?
We're 19. I think so. We're 48-30. Marco played in the last game before All-Star break, which was our 30th win to take us to 30-25. So that would be 19-5. Yeah, we're 19-5. We're 34-12 since Christmas, which I believe is the second best record in the league, besides Houston over that stretch.
And you're in the top 3 defensively, right? In the league since that stretch.
Yeah, I think we're number 1 since Christmas.
Yeah.
But for the season, I think we're top 3 or 4. We're a good team. I mean, we're a good team.
Well, the crazy thing about it is, you guys, the team obviously gets an incredible amount of attention for Markel, for Joe, for Ben, everything like that individually. But I also think that people sort of sleep on
the actual team,
what the actual team is doing and what the projections of the team were going into the season to what they are doing now. And so it becomes like, oh, well, the process worked and Joe made it and Ben made it. And yes, they're great. But like we talked about, like Marco and Ersan, it's like that those guys they're delivering.
Well, I think we are like, we're social media darlings in the sense because we have a Joel.
Yeah.
We have Ben Simmons, who is on House of Highlights nearly every night.
Yeah.
The entire Ringer staff is 76ers fans. So we get a lot of love from the Ringer.
You get a lot of love from the Ringer. That is for sure.
I'm surprised, like, for being an employee of the Ringer, how little love I get from, like, John Gonzalez. Like,
you know what it is? You know what it is? Because I think people are worried that it's going to seem too
Homerist. Like,
it's going to be too Homer. Yeah. It's like if we just gas JJ up all the time. This is the problem.
It's frustrating.
You just can't win.
I read these like great in-depth pieces, and I don't even get
You're
mentioned.
Like, what the fuck am I? I'm scoring 17 points a game.
It's all right. No one knows this, but
it's all right. I don't read everything about me or anything.
Yeah. No, I do read I don't read everything about me. Come on. I read if I'm in the New York Times, I'll read that. All right. And if I'm on the Ringer, I'll read that. No. So this is something that I've like started to really stress with our team. Like, let's not forget like about this year. Like, everybody's like, oh, they're going to be good in the East coming up, but like we have a chance. I'm not saying like we can win the conference or we can win the NBA championship. Maybe we can. I don't know. But
you've put yourself in a position you could potentially
to make a run in the playoffs.
And if you're the 3 seed in whatever conference you're in, you always have a chance.
Right.
You're not sneaking in anywhere anymore.
Right. So I think we really need to like take advantage of this opportunity. You don't you don't know. I was on the Orlando team that made the finals in 2009. It was my 3rd year. It was Jameer and Dwight's 5th year. And I remember when we lost to LA, Jameer and Dwight like sat next to each other on the court. They watched the Lakers celebrate. I was over in the corner, like by the hallway, like watching them celebrate. And I remember thinking to myself, like looking at those two guys, being like, they're both under contract. We just signed Richard. He's under contract. We have a bunch of young assets. Like, we're going to be back here next year, the year after that. Like, I thought we were going to be back every year. And the league evolves, number one.
Yep.
You don't know about health, and you don't know how teams evolve. Teams can grow stale. So you don't know. You can't like just assume there's going to be a carryover to the next year. That's not how the league works.
No, never.
At all.
Never has. And you know, especially with health with you guys, because you guys you've had a lot of that stuff. And so it's like you're all rolling now. And so you just got to keep it keep it moving.
I don't always, well, it's an entirely different topic, but I don't get the hate, like the hate towards the Sixers medical staff. In my experience, they've been great. They've been great.
This is just what happens when you guys are under. You're under a microscope.
Like Ben's injury, like, you know, like these guys have had injuries. Like, I guess maybe the frustration is like how they handled Joel's meniscus last year. Is that? Other than that,
from my understanding, it's a lot of it is a communication thing.
Yeah.
So it's not that there's nothing you can do about injuries, but it's how you tell the outside world who's refreshing their Twitter and Reddit and everything every 10 seconds what the injury is. And if you get caught a couple times
changing the story,
and these people see it all, they see the first story, they see the second story. Then
but
all
that's
of a
not
sudden,
the medical staff. That's more PR.
But they blame who they can blame. You know, and so that's where I'm not blaming PR either. I'm just saying, like, your PR is great. There's been a little bit of a breakdown in communication. Yeah, but I also think that this is, you know, the alternative. What's lucky about this for you guys, the alternative is like you could be on a team, and there are teams that are like this that are going into the playoffs, and like people just don't really care. You've been on teams like that before, where like you're a mid-level seed. And no one in the city even knows you're even in the playoffs.
Yes.
That is a reality of like professional sports. So like if you're on a team where people are really passionate, then you guys will have that home court advantage. Yeah. Versus if you're somewhere where what, like you tear your ACL.
You want to be a team on the rise. You don't want to be a team like really like my last year with Stan, where it was like we were in the 4-5 matchup, and we had gone from like finals, conference finals, first round, and then we were in the 4-5.
Well, on the rise, and it's also, we've talked about this before, like one of the things with the Clippers is like this is a reality that team, and they still do face it, and it's a frustration of, and it has nothing to do with the actual people who work for the team or anything like that. It's just the city. It's like LA is just it's a ridiculous place where you guys, I was when we were at game 5 or 6 of the Jazz series last year, and you could walk into the game for $100. And this is a high level NBA playoff game with two teams that could conceivably maybe not make the finals, but like challenge the Warriors down the road. And that's just because that's how the city was. And like Philadelphia, like you ain't walking in anywhere
no.
for $100.
No, I can't wait.
Yeah,
I can't wait.
It's gonna be fun.
All right. Well, thanks for listening. Appreciate it. Thanks for all the questions. We'll do another one of these someday soon. This was a lot of fun. Thank you for listening to this special Mailbag episode of the JJ Redick Podcast. If you like this show, please give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And as always, if you have suggestions or comments about the show, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter at JJ Redick. We'll be back soon. Take care. Also like to thank today's special guest, Tommy. Before we go, we have some exciting news for all of you Ringer heads out there. The Ringer has new merchandise with a shiny new storefront that you can check out right now. We have hats, hoodies, and even an exclusive Shea Serrano Disrespectful Dunk t-shirt. Your friends will be jealous when they see you strutting down the street with an official Ringer zip-up hoodie. Previously available only to Ringer staffers, we are letting you, our loyal listeners, get first dibs on the goods. Go to theringer.com/shop to pre-order your merch now. These are limited run items and will not last long. Once they are gone, they are gone. Again, check out theringer.com/shop to pre-order your official Ringer merchandise today. You can also find the link to the Ringer web store in the show notes.